Well, more now on the crisis in Zimbabwe. Jason is at the newswall with details of how the rest of the world is trying to stop the starvation in the country.
Gillian, thank you. Well, the World Food Programme began large-scale food distributions in Zimbabwe. That was back in October when more than 2 million people received aid. By the end of this month, they hope to extend that help to more than 3.3 million people. But the biggest job still lies ahead, of course. The food shortage is expected to peak in the months of February and March. During that time, 5.1 million people will need feeding. Now, that amounts to around 45% of Zimbabwe's population.
Well, with me now is London-based journalist Lance Guma from Shortwave Radio Africa. I believe you broadcast to Zimbabwe. Chilling comments from President Mugabe, quoted today in the Times as saying, "I will never, never surrender. Zimbabwe is mine, and there's no African brave enough to take it away."
Yeah, and I know it's very un-African to speak ill of our elders, but I think clearly we have to be honest and make the point that it does not look like Mugabe is in complete control of his faculties. I mean, there are several examples that I could give. The one you've just mentioned, him declaring that Zimbabwe is his. Last week he was saying there's no cholera in Zimbabwe, despite clear evidence that people are dying of the disease. Only last year, or this year rather, at the African Union Summit in Egypt, he wanted to beat up a Channel 4 journalist, calling him a bloody idiot. So there's a lot to suggest ZANU-PF is shielding their leader from scrutiny, and I do not think he is in complete control of his faculties, and that's part of the problem.
Do you seriously believe that he is actually ill, and that's how the problem should be approached now?
I think we've reached that stage where there is enough to suggest there is a problem. This is not Mugabe that we knew as Zimbabweans. He was a very articulate person who could argue his way through issues. But right now, one senses, even if we go back to the power sharing deal that was signed in September, on the day of the power sharing signing ceremony, he went on a rambling, incoherent speech, and one would not have expected that on such an occasion. So I think there's a problem there. You know, people are scared to say it, but I think we have to be blunt and call a spade a spade.
But then surely the problem is with the people around him, because if you, as you suggest, they might be aware that there is something afoot here. They are the ones that aren't doing anything about it. If they know that he's ill, they're the ones that are shielding him.
Yeah, I mean, clearly Mugabe has built up a patronage system where everyone around him is benefiting from the status quo. And I think it's not in their interest to have Mugabe step down. And also Mugabe has been clever in that he has managed to fan factionalism within the party. You have several factions within ZANU-PF, and Mugabe has been playing one faction against the other. So that has resulted in a situation where he clearly remains the only unifying factor. Without Mugabe, that party would collapse. And everybody around him knows that, which is why they keep him where he is.
Do you think it's fair to say that Morgan Tsvangirai has been almost ineffective at this point?
I think it's very difficult to make such a judgment in view of the brutality that exists in Zimbabwe. Just this year alone, close to 200 activists have been killed. I do not think this is a normal democratic society where we could make such judgments. But I think the MDC have made their mistakes, but in view of the kind of environment that they are operating in, I think it's understandable. Only yesterday, I think Morgan Tsvangirai showed courage in giving an ultimatum to Mugabe that if the 45 abducted activists are not produced by the 1st of December, he will be asking the MDC National Council to suspend all talks with ZANU-PF. So I think that was a brave move. That those abducted activists, who include television anchor Justina Mukoko, be released. So in view of the situation, I think assessments have to be made in the context of the environment the MDC is operating in.
And very briefly, do you think there will be international intervention?
Well, there certainly is a build-up. There are growing calls for this to happen, but I think the main stumbling block remains South Africa's position. South Africa is still encouraging dialogue rather naively when evidence clearly suggests that Mugabe is not interested in sharing power genuinely. And I think they're putting pressure on the wrong person. Instead of putting pressure on Mugabe, I think the SADC states are putting pressure on the opposition to join the government. And yet they have to put pressure on Mugabe to make concessions that allow the MDC to join.
Okay, Lance Guma, thank you very much for your expertise. Thank you.